It's the last days of Mother Earth. November. And Mother Earth, welcome everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. On the 30th of... Hang on, I'm doing two things at a time. On the 30th of November 2021, you got to include the date because a lot of what they're trying to do is erase the evidence, some of the evidence, and getting rid of the date confuses people, right? So I'm pretty good at it. I always try to include the date of the crimes. I'm Dana Durnford, the nuclear proctologist.org. There's all kinds of goodies over there. Get you up to speed. Get you up to being honest speed. 709-589-4406. 709-589-4406. Are you a racist? Will you avoid Japanese food? You racist! By the way, protesting a secrecy law is an act of treason and sedition, as they like to call it now. They call it a new word now. It's called terrorism. Terrorist. Why they got us, didn't they? Every organism in Fukushima prefecture is contaminated. Every organism, everything that has splitting cells, in Fukushima prefecture is contaminated with radiation. 1.37 million becquerels a kilogram in worm excrement 60 kilometers from the nuclear meltdowns. 60 kilometers. The worms are excreting 1.4 million atomic decays a second per kilogram. And you know, worm, they got a lot of excrement, right? They got two holes, one in the front, one in the back, and they just eat their way through and it goes out the other end, right? So, woo, it's madness. Here we go again. Never stops with this lot, does it? Safer than safe inside Fukushima's lethal food monitoring system. I'm laughing because it's so absurd to call it a food monitoring system. Rice in particular has recovered, by the way. In fact, total exports have doubled from pre-Fukushima to post-Fukushima. Well, the Japanese are not going to eat it. Might as well poison you. Because that's how that works. We'll get to that story coming up. Just a few little headlines I want to touch up on. Kind of get you up to speed. Hopefully motivate you. We're in real trouble here. They're shipping the food to North America too, remember. Former Prime Minister, half the people in Japan were close to being evacuated. Yeah, it's just a little old meltdown. So if your coal plant breaks down, do you expect to see headlines like that? Half the people, Prime Minister Trudeau in Canada, half the people in Canada were close to being evacuated after start of the coal plant breaking down. Or, oil plant breaking down. Do you think you get headlines like that for oil plants? How about gas plants? If your gas station, your gas power station breaks down, should we evacuate half the people in your country? Why are you evacuating half the people in your country if it's like a banana? I'm confused. Prime Minister's wife, Fukushima calamities beyond people's assumptions. And there's so much hidden, which there is. This is what we do here. It's just absurd. I hope they will make everything public. That's not a very good sign, is it? They're now trying to get people 55 and older to work on the Fukushima reactors. In fact, the headlines after were 60 and older should be prepared to die at the broken down power plant. Just let the elderly people hurry up and die. He was actually the guy in charge of the nuclear disaster. Top Japan official. Let the people who built the country hurry up and die. So incredible contempt, yeah? Japan Prime Minister talks about learning from the Nazis. Done really good, obviously. This is the Prime Minister now, right? Or Deputy Prime Minister. So you heard the Prime Minister, then you heard his wife. Then you heard the top official. Then you heard the Deputy Prime Minister learn from the Nazis. Then the Fukushima official groups demanding measures to protect people from radiation are lefty shits. And I can't help but only feel pity for their lack of intelligence. Well, actually, that's not true because people like that can't actually feel pity, right? In fact, the public official they're talking about was charged with helping the victims of the Japan's nuclear disaster, who launched a foul-mouthed Twitter triad, faced calls to quit Thursday. He had deleted it, of course, because that's what cowards do. Tokyo official blasts parents who want kids to avoid ingesting radioactivity at school. Little bastards. It is important to share the pain, said the top official. So you see this incredible disparage from the Prime Minister and his wife to the officials. Officials like savages. Prime Minister is there to shake hands, right? He doesn't. All of these so-called officials, they're the ones that's actually making the calls saying, do this and don't do that. And it's important to share the blame. I would have choked the shit right out of him right on the spot. Impaired and elderly Fukushima evacuees in need of food and water. Not the officials, but the evacuees. Being charged rent to live in a box. If you can call it a box. Vending machines will sing, "Don't give up on Fukushima, baby." Harvard website, environment abruptly changed for half Japan. It's still scary in Tokyo. People move away due to hot spots. These are not hot spots, these are whole shit spots. Media blindly reports TEPCO's false radiation levels. In fact, they put 3,000 Geiger counters in a single town. It takes some real sadistic personality to do stuff like that. Tell you what. That's a fact, Jack. Bear with me while we get through these technical difficulties. Oh yeah, I get it. It's just a piece of the equation. I happen to forget. You know how that works. Here we go. We're back in business. By the way, the only farmer in Fukushima town ships lettuce for sale, right? Think about that. The only farmer in town. Now, a couple of years later, they started picking up bags, and they picked up 30 million one-ton or 60 million one-ton bags. They didn't stop growing food there, is the craziest facet to this story. And besides the fact they're shipping it now worldwide with no checks whatsoever. They're absolutely lunatics. Japan Times, it's okay for babies to drink radioactive milk because adults have natural potassium in their body. That's criminal. You can't equate or conflate anthropogenic man-made isotopes with natural, harmless, innocuous, and benign elements from the solar system, the stardust, the very life of Earth. This despicable coward said you don't need to feel stressed even if you gave your children this powdered milk that was radioactive, by the way. It was something like 20-something becquerels per kilogram, apparently. The body of an adult male weighing 60 kilograms usually contain radioactive potassium. Yeah, because it's everywhere. Everything has potassium. It's harmless. You can't make a dirty bomb out of potassium. Via the banana equivalent dose, oh, you disgusting parasite, of 4,000 becquerels, based on this figure, a 3-kilogram baby would always have roughly 200 becquerels of the same radioactive material in their body. Reactors don't make potassium, for starters. What a disgusting thing to do. Given that, you can say 30 becquerels per kilogram in the powdered milk is small, and therefore would pose no harm to the baby. So saying that, so what happens is 30 becquerels per kilogram is in the powdered milk, and the baby's going to end up drinking that box, and then another box, and then another box as they're getting older. And they drink a lot of milk, right, originally. So you got this cesium running through their bodies, and their bodies, anywhere it's sequestered, the body immediately attacks it with white blood cells. And for white blood cells to exist, you have to displace the red blood cells, which carry oxygen and nutrition. So the more of that you consume, the more you bioaccumulate, the more white blood cells you start producing. Leaves you now, your immune system is compromised, you're more susceptible to pathogens and viruses that were normally irrelevant, were never an issue under any circumstances, were harmless. So it's outrageous to say that because you got 4,000 becquerels of potassium in a human, a baby don't weigh very heavy compared to a human, but therefore it was okay to give the baby 30 becquerels of cesium from the nuclear accident. It's not a nuclear accident because they built it on a fault line where there's thousands of earthquakes every year. Highly radioactive sewage found 30 plus miles from Fukushima plant. Cesium levels up to 334,000 becquerels per kilogram. 55 becquerels per kilogram is an evacuation destination on a nuclear power plant site. So when the sewage is 334 becquerels per kilogram, then how much were they ingesting to get that into their excrement? It's just terrifying, isn't it? Debris from their Fukushima nuclear plant is being ground up and burned in other parts of Japan. It's the dirty bombs, what they're talking about. They're taking the dirty bombs to different incinerators across the country and burning them consistently and constantly. I'll demonstrate to you. Incinerating radioactive material on its own. So if you took that same stuff, we're talking about billions of pounds, ground up and burnt incinerators. If you actually took that to another country without a nuclear accident and done it, you contaminate the entire country minimum right away, and then the whole planet, because the stuff circles the planet. But if you go look up the documentation, local government officials, rather than objectively, scientifically determine whether it was safe or not for people, just accepted the central government political decision to have debris from Fukushima brought and burned in many municipalities and prefectures throughout Japan. And as a result, not only the Fukushima people have inhaled radioactive nanoparticles, but also many other people in other locations. And that the map below from the year 2012 shows locations where Fukushima debris was burned then, and it was really spread all over Japan during the first 3 years, 2011, 2012, 2013. So they distributed it everywhere that they're, but we have endless stories of them cleaning it up and dumping it in the rivers and directly into the oceans. In fact, with the media watching a couple occasions in Tokyo. Massive radioactive waste buildup in Tokyo's suburbs. Massive radioactive waste built up in Tokyo suburbs. And disposals of the quake debris began in Tokyo to be burned in Koto. Radiation fears among residents are continuing for years, over £1 billion in that stuff. And they're going to burn it and liberate it back into the environment because you can't destroy it by burning it. Atlantic, is the government trying to contaminate every region of Japan by burning radiation, dirty bombs? And if everyone is contaminated in a relative sense, nobody is. This is what I mean. Like, so in the picture, hopefully, that I got drawn for you so far, clearly demonstrates that they're out of control. The nuclear industry is completely out of control. The IAEA and the nuclear regulatory commissions and humanity and universities have all faltered and floundered on this topic without challenging this, that it was... I've never come across a headline, per se, where you had institutions saying, hey, come on, man, that's mad boy. Fukushima will start burning radioactive waste, 100,000 becquerels a kilogram to be incinerated. Now, they built enough, they had, all nuclear power plants, this is Gallows' laugh, have incinerators to burn radiation. All of them. All 440 worldwide. Fukushima just built a brand spanking new one on the other side of the plant, and right alongside of it is a sorting robotics center sorting high radiation. And what comes out one end goes into the incinerator. They're mad. They're mad. The whole system is lunatic. This is not a game. Like, I don't do this because I'm bored. I'm in desperation mode all day. In fact, I couldn't even get in the woods today to look for birds or anything else. It's terrifying. There's no species left. Fukushima plant will burn radioactive waste. Incinerators to run around the clock. Incinerators at a nuclear plant are running around the clock where there's multiple nuclear meltdowns. It's not reassuring at all, okay? Tokyo neighbor Cesium, which is Chiba, which is about 20 kilometers away from Tokyo, 36 million people, approaching levels found in Fukushima. And that the Chiba incinerator dust was over 70,000 becquerels a kilogram left over after you incinerated the garbage and everything at 3,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures. The dust is still brutal, lethal doses. And they're only talking about cesium. You got to do mathematical equations to extrapolate the whole thing is story. Mysterious black substances has 1 million becquerels a kilogram of cesium. Well, they're talking about in Minima Soma. In Minima Soma, they started moving people back in a couple of years ago. It's surrounded by millions of one-ton bags of radiation, by the way. 10 million becquerels a kilogram of cesium detected in Minima Soma soil samples, says the local official from Minima Soma City Council. 10 million. It's where you run. You run. You don't stay there. You run, and you don't... So they're growing rice there, and they can't sell it. So what's the solution to that? Well, let's turn it into sake, and we'll go to New York City, you know, the government of Fukushima said, and did, and we'll open up a sake shop. Brews. Sake is now a brew from the prefecture. They opened up a shop in New York City 2 years ago that only sold sake made from rice that they couldn't sell because people didn't want radioactive rice. You tell me this is not a dangerous death cult industry? And I'll show you somebody in denial. Japan government did not reveal the plutonium-241 detection. Your loving government. Radiation dose was 50 times higher than the total of 3 other plutonium isotopes that were mentioned. 238, 239, 240. Do I hear 241? I just showed you 241. Come on. Keep up with it. Possibly 20 million becquerels a kilogram. Black substances. This was algae that aggregated radiation. Again, I'm laughing because if you go there and you see algae on cement and wood and steel all the time, right? And you go hang out there and smoke a cigarette, or you go hanging out there and have a cup of coffee in the morning, you're getting a brutal dose. If children walk past it, they're getting lethal doses. It's going to shorten their lifetime dramatically. Radioactivity is 6.5 million becquerels a kilogram detected 60 kilometers from the meltdown. They're growing food right next door to it, by the way. And they just opened the gates for Fukushima today. At 230 checkpoints will be open up today for Fukushima. 6.5 million becquerels a kilogram detected. You got all the organisms in the prefecture excreting huge radioactive numbers in a million. 500,000 becquerels a kilogram radioactive cesium found 75 miles from Fukushima. Fukushima 311 fallout figures released over 4 million becquerels in a major city, and that contamination did not come from the much talked about iodine-131 or the cesium-137. And I can't tell you exactly. I'm assuming it's strontium. High levels of radioactivity found extensively. Japan says the area 150 kilometers from the Fukushima plant is as radioactive as the area is closest to the meltdown. Fallout from Fukushima causing problems 180 kilometers away. It's all become no good. Contaminated wild vegetables, the fish, the wild game. 4 million becquerels a square meter of cesium in the soil. Just cesium. Just gamma. Not alpha, not beta, not neutrons. Just the gamma. The numbers would be insane if you includes it all. In Chiba, 20 kilometers from Tokyo. I'll build you a picture. In Chiba, that was cesium-137. Yeah, cesium-137. In the same place, 20 kilometers away, was 400,000 times normal radioactive xenon-133, which is not normal, by the way. Actual figures may be much higher. Maybe. I guarantee it. 27,000 becquerels a kilogram in cesium, only the gamma, in the kindergarten near the west coast of Japan, 200 kilometers away. Tokyo area turned out to be as contaminated as Fukushima. Japanese Prime Minister to study setting up alternative capital away from Tokyo. I got to get out of Dodge. High levels of radioactive material found in Tokyo. 170,000 becquerels a kilogram. Imagine growing food in Tokyo. And slag in your excrements. 170,000 becquerels a kilogram. Your excrements were just as radioactive as being close to the nuclear meltdown. Air samples in Tokyo, 270 times more contaminated with gamma, not counting neutrons or alpha or beta for some reason. Then global weapons fallout peak, because the reactor doesn't run on gamma, it runs on beta and neutrons, right? Then global weapons fallout peak. 270 times the air. So you're supposed to evacuate Tokyo. Tokyo drinking water is unsafe. Government distributing. Japan unveils plan to develop a massive government backup city 300 miles west of Tokyo for 200,000 staffs. Maybe built at Itami Airport. Lots of details. But no, it's not true. No, it's true, 100% true. 300,000 becquerels a square meter of radioactive iodine deposit areas near Tokyo, 220 kilometers away, by March. Yellow radioactive substances in Tokyo, this stuff is like 1 million becquerels a kilogram. Japan considers moving capital away from Tokyo. Tokyo area soil testing finds radioactivity up to Chernobyl's relocation levels of 919 million becquerels a square meter. Government said nothing to fear, and then came the results. 1.5 million becquerels a square meter near a church in the capital. These are absurd numbers per square meter, and you're symmetrically right across your whole country. Japan government prepares plan to flee Tokyo, ABC News Australia. Writers obtain secret Tokyo evacuation scenario. Fukushima reactors fail as the spent fuel rods melt, mix with the cement and fall into the buildings at 9,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures. High radiation levels near Tokyo linked to Fukushima. Really? Where else do you think that's going to come from? 29 million becquerels a square meter in the soil per square meter everywhere you go. These are absurd numbers because they're only talking about gamma. 276,000 becquerels a kilogram. You got to multiply that by 64, so you get around 18 million becquerels a square meter of just gamma cesium. The reactors run on uranium and plutonium, by the way. And the biggest byproduct of the radiated fuel rods is the curium isotopes. And you need lead shielding 20 times thicker for curium isotopes than you do for plutonium isotopes that are named after the devil. Like 241, definitely named after the devil. Former Prime Minister Khan, evacuation after Fukushima could have reached 50 million people. Well, what he probably said was should have, but the media was like, no, you can't put that down. Put down could have. That was the Japan Times, by the way, that reported these stories. Radioactive dust reported in Tokyo after recent fog, so you can't escape it in Tokyo ever now. It's forever. It's your forever friend. 4,000 becquerels a kilogram of just gamma. They're not measuring beta or alpha or neutrons. Strontium-90 found 245 kilometers from the meltdown in Yokohama City, 150 times the background level. Because after 1,000 days, the reactors start producing massive amounts of strontium, of melting down. And they'll do that for tens of thousands of days. 24,000 becquerels a kilogram of radioactive cesium, gamma, in the soil samples, 250 kilometers, far past Tokyo. We're going way past Tokyo now, Dana. 30,000 becquerels a square meter, Nagano, 250 kilometers from the meltdown. And Yokohama is also 250 kilometers away. They found strontium in 22,000 locations in Fukushima. Because strontium, like you say, it's 100 to 1 for cesium-137, the ratio. The iodine-131 levels rise 350 kilometers away. 130 kilometers past Tokyo. Headed south from Fukushima to sewage plants. My God, boy. Radionuclides start to transform into other substances. So it's been going on for a long time. 600 kilometers from Fukushima. High levels of cesium in Osaka Bay soil. Osaka used to have the 3 biggest fish markets on the planet. They're excreting huge numbers in Osaka. 900 kilometers from Fukushima, new contamination map shows the cesium deposited extending west of Hiroshima. Professor now reveals a high level of radioactive material 1,000 kilometers from Fukushima. Japan must be the only place in the world, local officials says, with several million becquerels of radioactive isotopes in urban areas. It's incomparable, highly radioactive blue algae and school routes. All of Japan is contaminated, and Gunnarsson shouldn't be quoted for anything because he lied so much about Reactor 4, didn't he? My results shows contamination is spread all over the country, Japan radiation expert. So therefore, I can quantify by saying Japanese food is not safe to eat. I'll do better than that, though. I'll do better if that's even possible. Radioactive substances from Fukushima belong to the landowners, not us, says TEPCO. The whole country covered in that, like, na. Tough luck, die, drop dead and die. A new study revealed Fukushima nuclear waste is poisoning the wildlife. Up to 99% of the offsprings died after eating low-level contaminated food. A very high abnormality rates and severe and rare deformities. 99% of the offsprings died. Guess what our fate is? Photographer X-rays like images show how radioactivity is spread throughout the bodies of the Fukushima wildlife. It was the same thing with the trees, right? Professor, I couldn't help feel pity for the trees. The X-ray like images show spreads of radioactivity, the equivalent of miscarriages, stillbirths, malformations. And you can see the bags now with plants growing out of it. The whole country now is puking every summer radioactive pollen. But the food was banned from 14 prefectures in 55 countries worldwide. Surprisingly, not all the countries worldwide had done the right moral and ethical thing and banned the food. Not that it was officially banned, but that there was a secret backdoor agreement with Hillary Clinton. They would take it in without checking it. So another facet of this wacky, lunatic, kooky nuclear industry is they grow food right by the nuclear power plants. So this is where the new Sizewell Sea is going in, and it's going to be surrounded by farms right up to the gates of the nuclear power plant. Coal don't do it. Oil don't build their facilities in farmland. Gas plants don't build it in farmland. So when you look at all these studies saying they know how radiation is absorbed into the plant and becomes part of the plant and the pollen and the fruit and everything else, you have to wonder, because there's so many studies showing that you shouldn't do it, why do they do it? So like this is part and parcel of what we're talking about tonight, where Japan, and we're going to get to that story, believe it or not, in a little bit, but Japan, again, is making absurd claims that the food grown in a nuclear wasteland is somehow better, lower levels of radiation than you would get anywhere else on planet Earth. Experimentally determined translocation of 134 cesium in potatoes. So they got all these studies showing this is a stupid idea, that they know that fruits and plants and everything is going to suck up the radiation. By the way, 85 strontium, 65 zirconium, and 134 cesiums. These are nasty isotopes getting sucked up by the food. You don't want to eat that stuff. So why are they doing it? Why are you doing it, you demon? Right? He was saying that United Nations, nobody got hurt from Fukushima. And he also allows nuclear power plants to be built in farmland. In fact, the IAEA, I think, if I remember correctly, insists on it. Foliage uptake 134 cesium, 85 strontium, and strawberries. So they got all kinds of studies showing this is stupid as you could get. This is absolutely evil. Like, if you look up Sellafield nuclear meltdown in the United Kingdom, they also have a reprocessing plant, their mixed oxide fuel facility, which means huge releases. And they're also isolated in the middle of huge farming country. It's a death cult. They're murdering the entire planet by shipping this food worldwide. Foliage and soil uptake 134 cesium, 85 strontium by grapevines. So why would you think this was a good idea to have an industry in the middle of farming, let alone nuclear? And the nuclear plants have fuel pools for decades of reactor cores. to cool down into, is what they like to tell you, right? This stuff is soaking up trillions of isotopes per liter because the fuel rods are splitting the atom. The same amount of atoms as they powered 1 million homes with, when they put it in the pool, is still happening. And so that water, 120,000 liters or so, is evaporated up the stack each day because the pools will boil off. And a lot of that radiation is going to fall in the farmers' food every day, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And they want the farmer to ship that food to market to get rid of a lot of the radiation so it doesn't bioaccumulate alongside of these disease factories. These are disease factories. This is a murdering. This is a genocide, what they're doing. And an ecocide and an omnicide of all species on the planet, because radiation attacks all species. Why are we still having this conversation? Why aren't we doing something about this? I work like a dog every day. I can't even do the research the way I want to be able to do it, need to do it. And it's torture. It's absolute torture. It's the definition of torture for me. That the world got an opinion about everything but evil? Why? Heck, if you're on a fence on this subject, there's something wrong with your head. You made it this far into the video. You're still on a fence and you're stupid. No offense, but what part about this is you can't wrap your mind around that this is danger. This is holy shit. If a quarter of if 1,000th of what I'm showing you tonight is real, the whole planet's in incredible trouble. Because it's been going on for 75 years. It's time to stop this madness. It's time to stop the madness. Right? It's torture for me. It's Groundhog's Day for me because I got to come here every day I can and sit here, beg the planet to wake up. Translocations of all kinds of isotopes to wheat, edible parts. So do you really think the nuclear power plants don't know these farms are going to get radioactive right away? It never stops hemorrhaging out of the nuclear plants. It's absurd numbers. It's weaponized against all species. Accumulation of radionuclides by plants is a monitor system. So here's the newest plant they're going to build. You guessed it, right in farm country. That's a new plant they're going to, let me do that again. There's a new plant they're going to build. There's the cartoon of it. There's the model superimposed over it. You tell me that's not insane? Surrounded by farmland? And I'll tell you, that's normal. All nuclear plants are like that. They hate us. They hate our guts. Otherwise, they wouldn't do something like that. That's like evil enough that it hemorrhages radiation, but to put it in a farmland. And then try to give it life extension so it can kill even more. Every amount of radiation exposure increases your risk to cancer. Then what the hell is this? I'm just saying, I'm trying to be realistic. By the way, child's risk of cancer from radiation is 10 to 100 times higher than an adult. So they're targeting the children because they know this is going to wipe out the children. They, just being one of it, the nuclear industry, he says there's no harm from Fukushima. He's the same guy who goes around sniffing bicycle seats. Look at that little charmer there. That's a charmer, see? That bird doesn't have anybody to protect him from these bicycle seat sniffers. And so our job is to try to protect everybody. Okay, here we go. Safer than safe inside of Fukushima's food monitoring system. This one here, Dana? No. Food monitoring system. They got a food monitoring system? I think so. Wait for it. In the last 8 years, a thorough test in Fukushima famous food products, such as rice, tomatoes, and cucumbers, have been consistently confirmed as safe to eat if you're stupid. But in reality, all of these prefectures, the food was banned in 55 countries, not just Fukushima. And in Fukushima Prefecture, the crazies are harvesting food grown right by nuclear waste. Try making that up on your own. Would you eat that? Which brings me to our poll tonight. Hey, you got a girl dancing on poles, Dana? No. I'm doing a poll, man. Come on. Should the head of the companies who import the radioactive food from the mass murder in Japan get life in jail? We got 88%, 24 votes, saying, yeah, man. And 12% of people don't think they should be held accountable. Should this person get life in jail for harvesting food right by millions of one-ton bags? You got to drive past millions of bags to get to the field and harvest the rice right alongside of thousands of one-ton bags. Like if someone told me that and I didn't know much about it, I'd say, God, get out of here, you crazy weirdo. No one do shit like that. You friggin' retard. Apologize. Oh, Dana looks so good. It's so tasty. Yeah, these people are way... The fruit kingdom of Japan. Delicious peaches and juicy pears. One might be surprised to find out what we are talking about. Fukushima Prefecture, Japan. Yeah, we are surprised. Remember this, baby? Alert! Fukushima peaches on sale outside of Japan. Alert! Evacuations, testing, cleaning, recovery, and more testing followed over 10 years as public and private initiatives work to make the rich agricultural regions of Fukushima safe again. Whoever wrote these stories needs to be fired right away, by the way. This work to make the rich... Oh, yeah. So Fukushima was the breadbasket of the Asian countries. And that they never stopped growing food there in the nuclear wasteland. So they got a whole bunch of homeless with no protection from the radiation, picking up radiation, putting it in one-ton bags. They've done that to 3% of the land where they want people to live. The rest of it hasn't been scraped or anything. But this actually doesn't work because it's constantly falling out. It never stops. It's still melting down. Hello? Is there anybody home? It's still falling down. The radiation is still melting down. Cody says life in jail. Good job, Cody.
There's about 60 million tons of contaminated soil that's being stored, planned to be stored, outside the Fukushima Daiichi perimeter fence. So there's about 60 million tons of
60 million tons, 60 million one-ton bags. Specialists and farmers on the ground shared their views and experiences in Japan's forward investigation of how things have changed since the event 10 years ago. Forwards investigation. This is a picture from the Japan Times. And they were saying the farmer harvesting the food for market was being unfairly treated because he's just trying to make a living and the rumors are hurting his lifestyle. But as you can see in the picture, there's one-ton bags of radiation right alongside him, uphill of him. I was like, nah, there's got to be some kind of sick gag somebody. No, sure enough, that was the real story. He showed up on other sites too. And I'm still confused today, about this picture. Like, what the frig, man? Didn't it ever occur to anybody that growing food there was criminal? For sure. Not maybe, not almost, but that's criminal. But growing food and then harvesting food in a nuclear wasteland, and I mean, that's the poster child of a nuclear wasteland, if anybody is looking for one. I'll put it on the big screen. So I'll get Geiger counted editor so you can get a screenshot later. So if I take the bag, I'm a criminal. If I grow food alongside the bag, I'm a farmer. Gotcha. If I murder everybody with radioactive food, I'm good. If I don't, then I'm troublemaker. Director General. So this is a company, right? A government company. Now he's the Director General of this little tiny company. Of the Agricultural Safety Promotion Department of Fukushima Agricultural Technology Center. I was practicing all day. There she is. One of the most evil places in human history right there. And that place is surrounded by these bags I'll show you coming up. Sitting handsomely in a clearing near Koriyama City. The Fukushima Agricultural Technology Center covers 56 hectares of land. They're just living in paradise, they claim. Surrounded by millions of one-ton bags, by the way. Near Koriyama City, you say, which is not too far from that spot. So, United Nations Scientific Committee on the Effects of Atomic Radiation. Baby, there's a lot of radiation. Absorbed doses in red bone marrow in Japan for the first year. Average disposition of 137 in the soil. Per square meter, that second row over there. That's got highlighted at the top. In Koriyama City was 162,000 becquerels per square meter of just gamma, not counting alpha and beta and neutrons and everything else. Surrounded by radiation. I mean, when I say surrounded, I mean surrounded. So in the wintertime, when that melts, it goes right through these bags. They were only built to last a year or two, by the way. It goes right through the bags and washes the radiation out into all the farmers' fields. Where they picked up the bags in farmer fields is because they want to activate the farm field, but then they just leave the bags there. Yep, you can put that in your books, another bag. Okay, so Koriyama City is this community right here also. Elementary school in Japan is using water bottles to shield the students from radiation. An elementary school in Koriyama City. That's the same spot where they got the agricultural department, isn't it, Dana? Yeah, that's right. An elementary school in Koriyama City, which is located in the Fukushima Prefecture, 34 miles west, even though of the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant, is using water bottles to shield radiation coming from the schoolyard and other areas around the school buildings. The bottles are filled with water and placed inside of square boxes which are stacked around the classroom and look like that. It is using the bottles to shield radiation coming from the courtyards. It's a pretty smart idea. Well, Dana, shouldn't he evacuate the kids? Well, no, that'll give the nuclear industry a black eye worldwide. What's more important? Nuclear industry or these little rugrats, right? According to the school, it seems to have reduced the radiation levels inside by 1/3. But then, do they have recess and go out and play in the garden? I think so. Stack a whole bunch of water bottles around and run out in the yard and get a few minutes of sunshine. And they got a rope and the teachers pull them back into the school and they put another student out, surrounded by boxes of water. Residents of Kuriyama City have been concerned about the high amount of radioactive material which is found around their town. Go buy some bottles and fill it up with water, you big sissies. Kuriyama City absorbed doses of red bone marrow in Japan for the first year of just gamma. And gamma is not a bone seeker, by the way, like strontium is, and plutonium, curium, uranium is, but not. So when they absorb doses of red bone marrow, your bone marrow does make stem cells, by the way, for the white blood cells, right? Absorbed to replenish them. And absorbed doses of red bone marrows in Japan for the first year. That would, right? So now you're talking about a beta, or you're talking about a neutron, like plutonium or uranium, not cesium. Cesium's not a bone seeker. Ooh, got you again in another lie. This is from United Nations website, by the way. So Kuriyama City, where the agricultural facility for verifying Fukushima food is located, won't even evacuate the elementary school children. Just fill up some bottles with water and put it outside and inside the classroom, okay? Leave us alone. We're scientists. We got to check the food coming in from the nuclear wasteland. Residents of Kuriyama City have been concerned about the high amount of radioactive material. Right. Well, school lunches are tested for radiation, for gamma. Well, because I'm not laughing. I'm laughing because I've been at this a long time, and I can't pull all the headlines into the stories, right? So whenever I say stuff, there's always these headlines flashing in front of my eyes. I can physically see them because I've done it so much. Well, school lunches are tested for radiation. Parents are concerned because they are largely unable to find out where the items were originally produced. You're in a nuclear wasteland where the children can't go outdoors because there's so much radiation. They got to stack boxes of bottled water around the classroom, inside and outside, to shield some of the radiation. That's the definition of child abuse, if I've ever heard of it. Because Kuriyama City is outside the evacuation zone, the government has barely conducted any decontamination activities on top of that in a nuclear wasteland. So all those little communities, I got a whole list of them I show sometimes, they weren't evacuated. And so they have those numbers there. They'll be fine. But once again, they're only acknowledging cesium-137. There's 1,000 fission products you need to acknowledge. What it does show you, though, it doesn't show you complacency. It shows you the insanity of this nuclear industry, how heartless and soulless and spineless how uncompromising this industry is for all species. It has this weird legacy of trying to exterminate all the species any way possible. Safer than safe inside Fukushima food monitoring systems. Well, first off, the facility is going to be locked down so radiation can't get in because they're surrounded by huge numbers in Kuriyama City. As I just showed you, I marched you right across Japan. I showed you the evidence that 14 prefectures near Kuriyama City, that they're putting up a greenhouse in rice fields along with bags of radiation right alongside of them. See, that's the definition of insanity. There's no reason to do it. Do it somewhere else where you don't have these high numbers. Yeah. Which reminds me, now that my video is live, I got to go in and scroll down to turn on, just in case somebody wanted to embed my video, because I'm restricted so many ways, it's absurd. I got to go, this is the third time now that I clicked allow embedding, because nobody can embed the video until I do that 3 times. YouTube hates my guts, eh? And the nuclear industry at YouTube, I should say, hates my guts. And 32 votes tonight. Where are we to here? Should the head of companies who import radioactive food from mass murder in Japan get life in jail? Got 32 votes with 88%. 38 votes with 88%. The industry is not very happy we're asking the question. The nuclear industry, when you hear like blame Japan for this, blame Japan for that, it's not Japan, it's the nuclear industry. Got a death grip on a lot of countries worldwide. Japan is one of them. Japan is just one of them. Japan is now responsible for exterminating planet Earth. Rice grown nearby Fukushima plant cleared for sale. Farmer, I would not dare eat it, and we feel guilty about growing it.
あと一つ言っておくことがあるんですけれども、福島県は農作物は出荷の前に全部検査しないと出荷できません。今は100ベクレル以下っていうことになってますけれども、農家が生産している、私は分かりますよ、これが何ベクレルあるって。放射能要は100ベクレル以下だったら出荷できるわけですから、私は食べませんよ。買って食べる人は放射能メイド持って買って食ってるってどうなの？俺らは分かってんだよ。罪の意識なんの作ってなって。自分は食わねえけど人の人に食わせてんの。どう思いますか？ちょっと答えてください。
So do I. I agree with you wholeheartedly, buddy. James Lucis says, starfish all died from COVID in 2013. I got to use that one of these days for sure. In June 2011, a mere 3 months after the earthquake, the Technology Center became the primary testing center in the prefecture for emergency environmental radiation monitoring of agricultural, forestry, and fishery products. It's right in the nuclear wasteland. These guys were so desperate, they took a job in a nuclear wasteland so they'd get a paycheck. And then by proxy now, everybody worldwide that eats food have to be worried sick they're eating something from Japan. Study finds 12 millisieverts, 12,000 microsieverts, average thyroid doses of internal radiation in Fukushima children. Government had assured the levels of such doses were zero, and he won't notify the parents. Too sad, too bad. 6 in 10 Fukushima children tested got diabetes. If you're going to be eating food and feeding it to your children, this is what you can expect where this stuff starts. And so they're going to blame all the deaths on coronavirus. Heads of Tokyo area medical clinic, we are expecting diabetes in children because eating radiation causes respiratory illnesses. Compromises your immune system, makes you more susceptible to pathogens and viruses. Right, so they pick up this to get people to move into those houses. And if you're pregnant woman, you get a free new house. Farmers implemented several measures to prevent the absorption of radioactive material in the food in a nuclear wasteland, such as scraping or washing off the bark of their fruit trees, which brings nutrition and water up the trunk, by the way, and removing the upper layer of soil. They don't do that, they actually mix it. In an effort to inhibit the absorption of such materials, potassium-rich fertilizer was also applied to agricultural lands. So they're saying by scraping the bark off the trees, scraping off the topsoil, and adding potassium fertilizer, like if you're talking to illiterates, that's fine. It's a lie, right? You can trick them. But this is about is tricking people. It's not. There's no science there, what they're talking about. Scraping the bark off your trees is not going to stop the radiation. The plants grow by the roots sucking up too, right? And then the radiation is sucked up by the roots. We showed you those studies earlier. These people are definition of insane. After cleaning, other mitigation measures were taken. The center then undertook testing for radioactivity in their harvested fruit and other foods. And so the center is Kuriyama City, which is a nuclear wasteland I showed you already. And since 2011, every category of food produced in Fukushima, because they never stopped growing it, headed for a retail market, because they never stopped selling it, has been tested at this center since 2011, when the nuclear meltdowns happened. They didn't start picking up bags till 2013. Japan set the threshold for issuing a warning on food items at 100 becquerels a kilogram, 1/10 of the new international recognized Codex standard of 1,000 becquerels a kilogram, 6.4 million per square meter. The head of first off, the previous limits in rice was 0.1 becquerel a kilogram. Now it's 100. So just artificially inflating the number doesn't mean it's got nothing to do with science or studies or evidence, right? Because it's just a few people were in a key position to set that standard at the UN. Because that's who sets the standards for all countries worldwide, is this mob organization known as UN, this corporation like McDonald's, but with 195 militaries. So they've taken over the planet, or they're trying to. They don't have any authority, by the way. But the previous limit was 0.1 becquerels a kilogram, and now it's 100 becquerel, 1,000 times more. And the reason it was 0.1 is because you had nuclear power plants in Japan. So when you pick up all these bags, it's because you really got a problem. Since 2013, the products also go through the International Atomic Energy Agency's proficiency tests, which verifies the accuracy of their Geiger counters. So who's the head of that organization? It's this degenerate, creepy, despicable scumbag. By the way, the IAEA, think about this here. The IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency, admitted that there is no such thing as a safe level of anthropogenic man-made radiation. And that their standards at the International Atomic Energy Agency's radiation standards are based on benefit and not on safety. So they're based on bananas and potato chips and walking in sunshine, harmless, everyday, natural stuff that everything on the planet is already acclimated to through genetic superior selection, not based on safety, which is man-made stuff. Safety is man-made, anthropogenic, man-made materials. So toxins, the radioactive toxins we're talking about, this radioactive fallout, is 1 billion times more toxic than industrial poison. And it pulses energy every second. $60 million one-ton bags. And then you got these bicycle seat sniffers out there telling everybody the food is safe. And you're not outraged? You're not upset? You're not fighting back? You're not going to war? What's wrong with you? You gotta get it together, man. Test everything from individual products to school lunches. So they murdered the children. Oh no, you're okay, Timmy. Oh, I got you eat more soup. Fukushima soup make you strong. And in the last 8 years, they only started picking up bags 8 years ago, by the way. They got 60 million of them picked up. 60 million bags, 1-ton bags. So if you put a 1-ton bag in the back of a pickup truck, a 1-ton pickup truck, they're big trucks, right? You put that in the back of a pickup truck bumper to bumper, 60 million bags is 10 rows of traffic continuously right around the planet, bumper to bumper. 10 rows of traffic. Well, we want to go, but we can't. There's 10 rows of traffic and it won't move. Several categories of Fukushima famous food products. Those were words you should never hear. Fukushima famous food products. And bless their hearts, but you had a nuclear meltdown and killed off most of the species worldwide. You definitely killed the Pacific already, and the Atlantic is dying at an accelerated rate. You caused global warming in overdrive. Several categories of Fukushima famous food products like rice, tomatoes, cucumbers have been consistently confirmed as safe to eat. Now, I showed you for the first part of the show, I marched you right across Japan. Who else does that, huh? Who else does shit like that for you? I do. I take care of everybody. I get you up to speed. You're supposed to all be out there angry, making videos like this, and just, we need 1 million people to show up at their meetings with ropes to lynch them with is what we really need. Just get rid of them. There's not that many of them. It only takes a couple of years. Rice in particular is recovered. So when the police come, when you say, who done this? You got 1 million people step forward and say, we did. What do you think the police are going to do? You get back in their car and get the frig out of there. They're going to go like, good job. Have a nice day. Total overseas exports of Fukushima, yeah, because if not, you got 1 million people tear them apart. You have 8 people on each of their limbs and just tear them apart. 5 people pulling their head off their bodies, everybody else pulling their arms and legs off their body. That's what we need. 1 million people just go and exterminate this industry. That's what they're doing to you and everybody else and all the species. Rice in particular has recovered. What? In fact, exports have doubled from Fukushima Prefecture nuclear wasteland from 153 tons in 2010 to 285 tons in 2020. So they're mass murdering people worldwide with radioactive rice and peaches. It's like I go out in the woods every day, can't find any birds or any species out there, no rabbits, and everybody I talk to tells me the same thing. No flocks of birds flying in your skies anymore. How long is this world going to sit in silence? How's that work? What's the point of sitting in silence? You think this is magically going to fix itself without no pushback? You got to come up with solutions. You got to have accountability. Worst case scenario, you can't change what happened, and we want revenge. And we want it public too, so we can enjoy it over and over and over. And having a bad day, you want to be able to go to YouTube, watch a bunch of nuclear scientists being publicly hanged. That would pick up my spirit for sure. I don't feel very good today. Oh, look, they're going to hang another nuclear scientist. I got to get a cup of tea. Hang on, boys. I don't want to miss the hanging. We got to go back to them days. The United States is among them following the September 2021 announcement by the Food and Drug Administration. So 55 countries and regions imported measures and products from Fukushima. No, from 14 prefectures. Not just Fukushima prefectures, all in northern Japan. And about 75% lifted their constraints. Yeah. The nuclear industry, boy, they put themselves in key positions in those countries because they control the universities, captured the regulators, captured the universities and the medias in increments over 75 years. It's only a matter of a year or two they got somebody in a key position can change the laws. It's absurd. It's not acceptable, okay? We got an extinction event playing out. If you go look at my research from Vancouver to Alaska, for instance, they wiped out the entire species of the coastline. The highly visible species, they're permanently gone. The only way you can do that is you got to kill the ocean itself. So 14 prefectures. And rightfully so. When you see pictures like that, you're supposed to go like, holy Jesus, they're actually harvesting food there. I mean, that's the picture of insanity, isn't it? Is that not the picture of insanity? Is that not the picture of, oh my goodness? Is that not a picture of, hey, arrest that man? There should be snipers on the hill, shoots the farmer when they're doing that. That's like a no-brainer. If I was running the country, I'd be getting snipers there in all these hills. See any farmers, shoot them. The United States has lifted all of its restrictions on imports of food products from Japan, established in the wake of the 2011 Fukushima nuclear disaster. What do you mean nuclear disaster? You know, nuclear disaster. No, I don't know. Well, tough. Japan's farm minister said Wednesday, because there's no such thing as a Japan's farm. I mean, there is somebody got that designation as a Japan, but they're not an actual minister. They're not somebody trying to do something good. They're a lobbyist from some organization, got that key position, right? U.S., because that's the only people that gets the ministry jobs. They're lobbyists for ministries. The United States lifted all of its restrictions. So there was no Western media reported on it. The other 13 prefectures, you had Fukushima, the other 13 prefectures, and because I'm a good type of a guy, I made a list of them for you. And so every single northern prefecture, food was banned in 55 countries. And then overnight, on the drop of a hat, they said to hell with it. Oh, that doesn't work. U.S. FDA lifts Japanese food import restrictions. The EU eases restrictions on the food imports to Japan Times. So the Japan Times was out gloating about it, eh? The Japan media and the Asian media. But like Fox and CNN and BBC and CBC and CBS and ABC Australia, blah, 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 all the goblins. None of them reported on it. That food was allowed in from a nuclear wasteland. No Western media reported on it. So therefore, should the head of companies who import radioactive food from mass murder in Japan get life in jail? I think that's a pretty appropriate question, isn't it? I know what my answer is. A little worse than life in jail. Iceland, Norway, and 2 other non-EU European countries will also make a similar rule change to import food from a nuclear wasteland with 0 restrictions, no checking it. Just send what you got, don't worry about it. I'm not eating it. There are signs public opinion is shifting as the regions Star products received public praise from figures like the coach of the American softball team, who complimented Fukushima's peaches during the Olympics, referring to Ken Erickson. The American coach revealed in a press conference in Fukushima in July 2021 at the beginning of the Olympics that he had eaten peaches at his hotel. What? And smiling, he said the peaches in Fukushima was delicious. That's your evidence? So if I grow peaches there and it tastes delicious, that means there's no radiation, is what you're saying. My God, man, how stupid are you? It gets worse. And the American Olympic coach said it was a shame the media could not see what a safe and wonderful place Fukushima is. Just because somebody's stupid don't mean that they're right. And Dana, there's two stupid people. Maybe they're not stupid. Australia's coach, Harold, who also complimented Fukushima local product on July 21st, saying, more than anything, the peaches were by far the best. $50,000, baby. So now because we covered this when it happened, them people saying that, right? And now that's considered evidence that it's safe. It's because two coaches ate a peach. So whoever wrote this reputational challenges, he admitted that there were some enduring challenges to recovering from the reputational damage. Reputational damage. An unfavorable consequence is the price of the Fukushima products that still tend to be lower than a national average. Gee, I wonder why. I wonder why not. In 2021, 8% of people in Japan still said they hesitate to buy products, down from 20% in 2013. It was actually more like 75 or 80% in 2013 wouldn't touch it. And the other 10%, 20% said they would, actually just because they worked for the nuclear industry, they wanted the nuclear plants to open again. What a despicable sack of shit this creature turned out to be. What a horrific, despicable, coward, murdering scumbag he turned out to be. What a degenerate monster he turned out to be. He should give all of his press conferences from one of the abandoned businesses in Japan. There are many people who support us, said in the nuclear industry. We want to deliver clear, correct information so the confidence in Fukushima products will grow going forward, he says. And I'm here to show you the reality that that's the worst thing can happen to humanity, is that he gets his wishes. In fact, they picked up, as I showed you, 60 million bags. So guess what they're doing with the bags? Because everybody stopped paying attention. So now they're taking the bags, they're splitting them open in a ghost town, Kuma, and they're dumping the soil out and they're growing food in it for market. Soil from Fukushima radiation decontamination work to be reused in new farmland, and new farmland is in a ghost town, an idiot. A farmland development project testing the reusability of soil generated from radiation decontamination work after the meltdowns. So these bags now are going to grow food with soil. Carried out by the Environment Minister in a restricted, difficult to return zone. Yeah, try making that up on your own. Well, what we're going to do with all the radioactive material? Well, let's bring it into the exclusion zone because there's no people there because, it's radioactive. We'll dump the soil out and we'll have us a farm. Oh, who's going to do it? Oh, who else? The Environment Minister. Like, I could do one better. Let's go into the restricted difficulty return zone and grow the food in the soil. Try making that up. FDA lifts Japanese food import restrictions. Don't need to, see? Rice planted and evacuated Fukushima town for the first time since nuclear disaster. Because, like, if this wasn't a live show, I'd be screaming. You can't do it because I'm doing a live show, right? But I'd be going like, this is madness! The world has gone mad. Residents of Fukushima no entry zone visit home. So the industry is insane because first off, they left all the kids in Kuriyama City. The kids had to use water bottles to get radiation numbers to come down a little bit, stacked throughout their classrooms. So rather than evacuate, we're like, no, not evacuating the kids. We can't study the little rats if they evacuate them. Entry control eased into the Fukushima Daiichi host town today. Host town, which is Akuma. More than 60% of Akuma town in Fukushima prefecture still designated as difficult to return. So 60% of the town, you're not allowed to go in that part of the town. 60% of the town. Okay, so you're not allowed to cross the street, were you too? Is how it basically works out. But radiation pulses across the street anyway. But it doesn't, the nuclear meltdown is still happening there. That's just a couple of kilometers away from a nuclear meltdown. I'm heartbroken because you got all these people that don't know any better. And are going to go back and take their children back and ruin their health. So the nuclear industry can have a few laughs tonight. The whole nuclear industry will wake up tomorrow morning and they'll find that story and they'll make memes and share it back and forth of people dying of cancer and everything else. Like the nuclear industry, I kid you not, that's a death cult. That's a secret society. They know what they're doing. They're not stupid, highly educated creatures, but these are incredible cowards. Authority have carried out decontamination infrastructure rebuilding in more than 18% of the zone, this little section, see, which will allow lifting of the order next spring. Barriers installed at more than 220 entry points were open at 9 a.m. on Tuesday. There's over 300 police officers have died in this area, by the way, just dropped dead randomly. The government said that as of Monday, 23 people comprising 12 households have applied for overnight stays. And Akuma mayor, this despicable sack of shit mayor, said it took years to trick people into coming back to a nuclear wasteland. But we did it, Noyuki. We did it, baby. We did it. This is a model of North America after 17 days, I think it was, 468 hours or something. This is a model of 20 days. The whole planet covered in radiation. The plume didn't stop. It's a continuous plume. It's gas, oil, and coal emissions don't do that. The only thing that does that is the disgusting, despicable, spineless, soulless, heartless, monstrous, demonic nuclear industry. Only the nuclear industry is so heartless. The IAEA is nobody's friends, including their own. They have this absurd contempt for all species. Should the heads of companies who import radioactive food from mass murder in Japan get life in jail? We got a resounding 86% of people said yes. And 14% thinks that murdering is cool. That's obviously the nuclear industry. So it's very telling to see 14% of the poll is people that promote the killings of humanity, and that they don't think it's a crime to murder you. It just shows you the contempt in the nuclear industry, doesn't it? And we thank everybody for voting. Yeah, baby. Colette S. Cody. Good night, everybody. Don Vincent. Richard. James Lucid. I only serve one king. Lori. Kevin Blanche. The worst deadly cult in human history is the Nuclear Energy Crime Syndicate. And every time it rains in Japan, it washes down into the coastlines or is liberated into the environment. Everybody's doing good. I desperately wanted to go in the woods today, but it was a brutal rain today. Dana Nasana. Marjorie. Marge. Chet. Good night, everybody. Ella. Ella votes for revenge in the front seat at their hangings. I guess we'll be rubbing elbows by the sounds of it. I'll be there. Port Angeles. Good night, everybody. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up on your way out the door. Paul Tippy. It's a heart show today. Dennis Jenkins. I just couldn't come. I was trying all kinds of combinations to tell the story. How do you get... A lot of the stories I'm telling are based on, if this is the first time coming to my site, can I convince you there's an issue? Which is actually really easy to do this day and age, because you're dealing with all the lies. So all you got to do is debunk their lies. And Mark, hi Mark. Shayla White. Hi Shayla White, 801. Hope everybody has a good day tomorrow. I'm just flashing through the names here as quick as I can. Try not to miss anybody, but I always seem to miss somebody, I notice. Katja. Sea Rain. I see Rain. Dave Holly in the UK. Timeless Truths. We're almost through the names. Lots of people commenting tonight. That's good to see. Civilian Warrior. Good night, everyone. I'm going to have to get a cup of tea myself now. Yeah, we've broken the food chain, for sure. And we can't leave evil in charge. And so we're forced to come out and challenge their lies. If we don't challenge their lies, it means nobody challenged their lies. And if you don't try to present another narrative, there won't be another narrative. And if we don't do the research, then we don't have any evidence. And when I go out in the woods and there's no species out there, that lights a fire under me for 1,000 years. I just I want to go to war. Wake up every day and go to war against this industry. It's not a game. It's a lot of work. Doing what I'm doing is an absurd, ridiculous amount of work. I'm still good to go, despite 308, 325 on the Geiger counter. 334. Come on, stop it. There we go. God bless everybody. Hugs for everybody. We'll see everybody tomorrow night. We got a show ready for tomorrow night, by the way. She's a doozy. God bless everybody. Have a great night. We'll see everybody. Kevin Blanche, by the way, site was blocked again. I think he'll be live starting Sunday. Don't quote me, but not very long, in a few days anyway. Not Sunday, I think Thursday or Friday maybe. I can't remember. Keep checking his site anyway. We'll see everybody tomorrow night. Have a great night, folks.